Good morning. Happy Monday. So I'm continuing to answer your questions. Most of the questions are still coming from You Are the Universe, discovering your cosmic self and why it matters. I'm very grateful for your support. And I also answer questions on any topic. You can send the questions to info@jayo.com, info@jayo.com, info@jayo.com. Please also download the app Jayo. You can go to jayo.com. This is our community for well-being, where we can all hang out together, share our happy moments with each other, and share learning with each other. There's a new channel called Jayo Learn over there where you can take classes and courses as well. And you can create your own network of friends who are engaged in personal and social transformation. So please download the app, jayo.com. Also, I think I've announced this book now, The Healing Self, my next book with Dr. Rudy Tanzi, who's a neuroscientist and professor of neurology at Mass General Hospital. He is the head of the genetics lab at Mass General, and he's a very prominent expert in the world of chronic neurological diseases, particularly Alzheimer's. He has discovered many genes, and I'm honored to be his co-author. Once again, the book is called The Healing Self, a revolutionary new plan to supercharge your immune system and stay well for life. The book will be out in a month, but you can pre-order it right now by going online, Amazon, etc., etc. So today, I want to address a question that has been coming. Lalita says, please show the book right side up. I guess I don't know how to do it. I'm so dumb. In any case, I think you can make out The Healing Self. Okay, so today I'm answering a question that has come in many forms from many people, but basically it is the anguish that people, it's about the anguish that people feel when they're criticized or emotionally attacked, or their integrity is attacked, or when they feel that people want to pull them down. And people are struggling with this a lot. So what I'd like to do is, Tanya Montgomery says, ordered and thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for supporting my work and these books, and thank you for engaging in this conversation. Yes, the name of the new book is The Healing Self. Okay, let me continue on what I'm saying, and that is how do you deal with criticism, verbal, emotional attack, people trying to bring you down, and I want to address this in great detail, but let me begin by saying that anyone who has achieved anything in the world has experienced attack, has experienced criticism, has experienced other people trying to bring them down. There are various ways of dealing with this, which I have learned over the years. But take solace that if you're being attacked or criticized, you must be doing something interesting or significant or challenging to other people. So right now I'm not talking about physical violence. I'm talking about, the kind of attack that people get from critics, the vehement disagreements that occur in academia, in business, in leadership situations, and on and on. So, all of you have probably experienced that with someone in your life, either somebody who's very close, maybe even your partner, maybe a sibling, maybe your parents, maybe your children, maybe some of your friends, maybe professional colleagues or those who are jealous of your achievements, maybe social media, maybe journalists, maybe your political adversaries or your business competitors. But if you're in this world and you're engaged in any way, then you will have received some kind of criticism or attack or some kind of engagement with people that want to bring you down. So be assured you're not alone, number one. Secondly, everything happens for a reason, and where I'm going to go with this is that criticism and personal attacks on you and people trying to pull you down can actually elevate you to a higher consciousness. So just remember that this is a perfect way to discover who you really are, and also a perfect way to achieve higher consciousness and all the gifts that come with it, including intuition, insight, creativity, a new imagination, but most importantly, getting in touch with your true self. So as a background, I'll give you a little bit of my own personal history. I grew up in India. My father was a very famous cardiologist, and he was also in the military for a while. My mother was a great storyteller, and we grew up, me and my brother grew up in a very nurturing, loving family. And right from the start, we were the recipients of great love and great compassion, empathy, great joy. And I can tell you that my parents were the most wonderful people I've known. My father on weekends would see patients free of charge. My mother would cook food for them, and before they left, they made sure that the patients had enough money for their train fare or their bus fare. And my mother would even pray for my father's patients while he gave them the best medical treatment there ever was. So it was actually an amazing childhood. But school was different. School, you have a diversity of classmates, and they come from different backgrounds, maybe not so happy in their homes, and every child has experienced bullying and being teased by others or being diminished by others. So my environment in school was totally different from that at home. And so I saw the contrast between what I was experiencing at home and also what I was experiencing in my classroom. Also, in one of my schools, St. Edmund's in Shillong, which was run by Irish Christian missionary brothers, there was a lot of discipline, and there was a lot of emphasis on achievement. So at the end of every month, we were graded, and the principal of the school would give out cards to see where you fell in the range of competition at school. So if you got a gold report card, then you were brilliant. The principal invited you and other gold card recipients to an evening movie, and there was a lot of celebration in the school honoring you. On the other hand, if you got a blue card, then you were considered average, and the principal did shake your hand and smile, but no more than that. And then if you got what was called a pink card, which is that you had failed, then the principal actually gave you the card and you would look away as if he was ignoring you. And so that was very humiliating to get a pink card. But very early on, I learned that it was very important to be validated by other people in order to keep up what I then thought was self-esteem. And so, very early on in all our lives, we are conditioned to depend on validation from others. And that sets up a whole process that is fear-based. Validation, validation, validation. And of course, you can't get validation from everyone all the time. There's a Sufi story that you may have heard about a man and his wife, and they're walking up a hill with their donkey, and somebody sees them and he says, how foolish these people are. They have this donkey that they could ride on, and yet they're walking behind the donkey without taking advantage of the donkey. So what happens is that the husband sits on the donkey and the woman walks till someone else sees them and says, what a cruel wife. So someone sees them and says, what a cruel husband. He has no respect for women. He's riding the donkey and making his wife walk behind him. So the poor guy gets down, puts his wife on the donkey and walks behind her. And of course, till the next person remarks, what a selfish woman. Her husband probably works all day long and is exhausted. But this wife has no consideration for her husband, and she's riding the donkey while the husband is walking behind her after a hard day's work. So this time, they both ride the donkey. So another few yards till the next critic over there says, what cruel humans these are, two of them riding a donkey, no consideration for this poor donkey who's having to bear the burden of carrying two people. So you get the point, right? You can do whatever you want, but there'll always be somebody who will criticize you, condemn you, attack you or pull you down. And the lesson of the story is that, first of all, you can't please everyone anyway. Okay, so how do you deal with it? I'll be back with that in the next 15 seconds. Okay, so I'm back here, and I promised that I will now talk about how do you deal with criticism, attack, and those who want to pull you down. The first thing is to recognize that self-image and self-esteem are not the same thing, okay? Self-image is what other people think of you, and you identify with that. And self-esteem is being in touch with your true being or your true self. But we are conditioned, all of us are conditioned, and this conditioning comes from the good and bad opinions of others. A lot of the conditioning is through the recycling of the conditioned mind over years and years, centuries. Social conditioning, religious conditioning, economic conditioning, geographical conditioning, and then of course all these conditioned minds with different conditionings are judging other conditioned minds and attacking them and being attacked by them. So I like to joke, we sacrifice ourselves for our selfie. Our selfie is our self-image that depends on the good and bad opinions of the world. And that is not true self-esteem, it's just identifying with a fictional character that we call the ego self. And then all these fictional characters, these ego identities, are fighting with each other. And this is the cause of all the conflict in the world. The separate conditioned self fighting with other separate conditioned selves. All fictional characters fighting with other fictional characters. Ramanand Dixit says, it's a welfie. Yes, please post your welfies on jaya.com. Let's replace the selfie with the welfie, and ultimately the welfie with the well-being in you. So in any case, when we identify with our conditioned self, and we can achieve a lot, by the way, by identifying with the conditioned self, but we're always insecure, and we're always looking for validation. We're dependent on the good and bad opinions of others, and we are easily flattered, we are easily offended. In fact, if you identify with your conditioned self, then it will make it necessary for you to be offended for the rest of your life. That's not a good way to live, to be dependent on every stranger you meet on the street, flattered by some, offended by some. That's living like a biological robot that's constantly being triggered by people and circumstance into predictable outcomes. So when I started my career in mind-body medicine and started exploring consciousness, I heard through the grapevine that my colleagues who were other mainstream doctors were actually quite embarrassed by my behavior. I also heard rumors that I would be fired, so I left academia and went to California and started my own center. When I tried to publish my first book, Creating Health, nobody would accept it. And when I tried to report the mind-body interactions in my patients in medical journals, nobody would accept it. In fact, my first book, Creating Health, I self-published until it was picked up by an agent and became a national bestseller. And then I wrote Quantum Healing, which was again criticized by my colleagues. I republished the book now 30 years later with all the scientific backing. But for many years I was really criticized and condemned by my colleagues, by professional debunkers, by skeptics. I was on the cover of Skeptic magazine as a charlatan. Since then, Mike Shermer, who has been one of my biggest critics, is also a good friend now. And similarly, my friend Leonard Mallard now, the physicist who co-wrote the book Grand Design and A Briefer History of Time with Stephen Hawking, he was very antagonistic to me, but Even though we had a lot of differences, we are now good friends. So it's actually possible. It's possible to become friends with your worst critics. In fact, Oscar Wilde used to say, "My worst critics are my best friends," because I learn from them. In any case, that's a bit of my history, and even now I'm constantly attacked in the media. For example, recently there was an article in some magazine called Gizmodo, which was attacking not only my device, the Dreamweaver, that I co-developed with Rudy Tanzi, but basically personal attacks on me, my integrity. There's a website called The Wisdom of Chopra that is constantly ridiculing my work, where they spew out random quotes generated by a computer, and they ask people to see if they can tell the difference between these random nonsensical quotes and my quotes. In fact, somebody at Waterloo University, some faculty person there, has written an article in a so-called professional journal where people could not tell the difference between random quotes generated by a computer and my quotes. And the article that attacked me was called something like the pseudo-profound bullshit of Deepak Chopra. And of course, these things recycle on the internet. And so every day I see some pretty vicious attacks on me. So how have I learned to deal with all these over the years? Well, in the beginning, by actually being very defensive and arguing. And some of these arguments were very vicious and very stressful for all sides. I later realized that, when you're defensive and you argue, you only reinforce the opinions of others. I also have been to debates where people came to the debate having already made up their mind, and no matter, Kevin Rafferty says, "What you think of me is none of my business." That's a quote from Maharishi, beautiful, who was my teacher. "What you think of me is none of my business." Another quote from Maharishi was, "I love you, but it is none of your business." I love you, but it is none of your business. So, yeah, those are great quotes. But I found that, people who came to debates and listened to all the facts went back reinforced with what they already had an opinion about. So, as they say, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Nobody changes their opinion unless they want to, and nobody actually listens to facts. They already have emotional attachment to their conditioned mind. So first thing is, don't waste your time arguing with your critics. The second step that I learned after a while was that if you ignored your critics, they couldn't stand it, and they became even more vicious. Those who wanted to attack you, they attacked you even more if you ignored them, and because they were seeking attention. So then if you stopped ignoring them and you stopped attacking them, but you started to acknowledge them and respond to them, that didn't make them happy either, because they liked the attention, they wanted more of it, so they increased their criticism. Again, you cannot satisfy your critics no matter what, whether you ignore them, whether you argue with them, whether you try to engage in civil dialogue with them. All they want is more attention. And they're doing it not because they genuinely dislike you, They're doing it because they're not getting any attention. And one way is to get attention by attacking others. So that happens a lot. So that doesn't work. I think ultimately, the only thing that works is for you to shift from your self-image to yourself. To recognize that when you shift from your self-image to the awareness in which the self-image is a fictional character built out of the conditioned mind, there's suddenly a deep peace and a presence, and you realize that is you. You realize that is you. And then you very spontaneously become immune to criticism and flattery. You very spontaneously lose all fear, because all the fear is coming from the ego identity. You very spontaneously stop trying to feel superior or feel inferior. This is self-power. Immune to criticism and flattery, beneath no one, superior to no one, and fearless. And with that comes a spontaneous creativity, intuition, vision, and desire to seek truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, without seeking validation. With that also comes a very spontaneous joy and equanimity and compassion and empathy, even for your critics. And then you become free to be a creator and co-creator with the presence in you. So not only does that bring immense peace of mind, but there's a very interesting thing. When you're anchored in presence, anchored in being, anchored in awareness, there is a loving presence that permeates not only you, but it emanates from you. And it, in a very strange way, disarms those that are hell-bent on attacking you. So your loving presence, your being grounded in awareness, is healing. It creates peace wherever you go. And it creates peace not by what you say or by what you do. It creates peace just by your presence. Patanjali, the great teacher of yoga, says, when you're perfectly established in presence, in being, in awareness, in that which is the peace that passes understanding, then all beings feel peace. All beings are spontaneously disarmed. Not because you're being defensive, not because you're arguing, not because you're ignoring, not because you're engaging and trying to be nice and manipulative, but just because of who you are. In your being, there is healing. Barbara Hollick says, how to be. There's no how to being, there's how to everything. Thinking, speaking, walking, doing, reflecting, acting. But there's no how to being, it's just being aware. Being still being without any agenda, being present. Presence is awareness, soul, true self, just being. So I hope that makes sense. Until tomorrow, this is Deepak. Indriya Ramachi says, let go of all constructs. Yes. Who you are without all constructs is infinite possibilities, infinite creativity, infinite love, infinite correlation. You are the source of all experience, and this source is self-regulating, self-evolving, self-correcting, self-healing, and is spirit. Spirit. See you tomorrow, and thanks again. And the new book is The Healing Self, a revolutionary new plan to supercharge your immune system, stay well for life with Rudy Chancy. Thank you.